Hey there, this is Dan. You're watching the Salty Sea, and today I am going to do another list review slash tournament preview show. This time about Warcry 2025. This is Poland's biggest Warcry tournament. It is generally every year they hold it. It is the spikiest tournament in Europe. Sometimes spikiest tournament in the world. I would say it's pretty reasonable to say that. There are some others. For example, Adepticon this last year was also incredibly spiky. What I mean by that here is not necessarily the types of players that are going to be there, the attitudes, but more just the list building in general is very, very like the lists read very cutthroat, which is really exciting and something that I find really awesome as far as taking a look at people creating theories about what the tournament pack is going to be and then testing them in the moment. So I'm really excited to take a look. First, we're just going to take a look at the missions they are playing. The first one, it's going to be kind of funny. There's going to be one that is guaranteed. It's going to be Jack of all trades. And then there's a 1 in 7 chance in round 2 of one of these getting played. And then they are going to sort of do these weighted averages to make sure that they get to sort of this balance of having at least 1 kill, 1 objective, and 2 treasure missions. Most of these blend multiple types, so it's almost guaranteed they'll get that even with random drawing, but it's just how they're going to do it. And so the sort of tournament that will actually happen really depends on what gets drawn. So you have to prepare for all 8 missions, knowing that Jack of all trades is the only one that's guaranteed. So just going into Jack of all trades, I have played this one before. Basically, there are 4 treasures that start out kind of near the edge of the battlefield, and then there are 4 objectives right in the middle here. So basically, you are strongly incentivized to kind of take a detour on your way to the objectives to go grab a treasure, because scoring, getting your hands on 3 of the 4 treasures is really nice, as is winning 3 of the 4 objectives or just winning blood tally. So you can kind of take it in any way. I think that this mission is really cool. I think that it is absolutely savage on any kind of dwarf warband, but that's okay. There's a lot of other kind of cool stuff going on here, which is a lot of fun. The rest are, there's a lot of treasure focus here, right? They are picking 2 treasure missions. So, things like Harvest Moon is objectives and treasures. River of Gold, Dragon's Hoard, Killing Field all have treasures. But the way they use those treasures are, and blood trophies too. And the way they use those trophies are all really different. And so it's going to require really different ways to kind of, set up the missions really, or like set up your warband to take advantage of the missions, which I think is really interesting. And you're going to see when we look at the lists that a lot of people have taken really different approaches to that. So let's get started. I've got a Warcryer here in case I find a fighter that I don't know very well in one of these lists, and we'll get through it. There are a lot of lists, so what'll happen is I'll probably spend a bunch of time on the first 5, realize I'm not going fast enough, and then start moving really quick through. So anyway, Greg's is playing a big Soulblight swarm, so 12 bodies, a lot of skeletons, a few zombies as well, mix of spear and blade. I actually like that. If you are going to go skeletons, I like having a mix of spear and blade. The only kind of concession to the missions here is the Cavalos Centauri, which can do a lot of damage on a double and runs around. The only issue with the Centauri is, so what you're getting for the points, it's fast, it deals a lot of, not a lot of things at that points cost, and that speed can deal damage the way the Centauri can with its double. The issue there is that it only has 20 wounds, so if your opponent can dedicate some time to taking it down, it's going to go down quick. They are going to bring it down. So I think it's a really interesting ally to have here. This is a very killy pack, in my opinion. There are a lot of objectives. There are a lot of sort of asking the players to spread out, but Soul Blight with only one damage dealer, White King can fight, but isn't necessarily the biggest fighter. I think this list would be terrifying in some packs. I am really interested to see how it does in this pack with only one real damage dealer in there. But that said, the Centauri is really fast, and so can hunt down a treasure carrier and kill it, or can grab a treasure and run away, which in some of these is going to be really interesting and really hard to deal with. Next we go to Bad Zoo, playing Seraphon, and this list is just a real aggressive combo coming right out of the gate. Bad Zoo couldn't have taken a more opposite approach to what Greg did. Basically, what they're going to be doing is taking their big frog that has +1 strength and is threatening to kill everything on the board, and they're going to be trying to give it extra actions. Bad Zoo is hoping for a full house every game. Actually, Greg is doing that as well. This is a very resurrection focused list, and then the Cavalos really wants a double all the time. And so both of these players, if they can roll a lot of sort of double 2 singles and then use 1 wild dice to add just like a small quick double into a triple, both of them are going to be really happy. But Calthea here hoping to accelerate the Slan and then maybe catch the Croxagore in the ability bubble as well and get some massive value. I do think, these are very killy missions, but because they ask you to spread out so much, I think it's going to be hard if the Slan even just whiffs once. All of a sudden, you're going to be having a tough time, especially also lists like this do require a lot of, you can't have a bad initiative roll. You can't have just like a really wonky, weird initiative roll. As soon as you get a double and 4 singles or something, you're like, oh my god, this hurts so bad. So those can be issues, but this is going to be I wouldn't be surprised if Bad Zoo manages to get 2 kills in round 1 during a game or something like that. And in certain situations like bloody trophies, that can be really powerful. In fact, I would really not want to play against this warband in bloody trophies. I think that would be a nightmare. Now we're going to go to, I am going to really struggle with these names. Apologize. I will give it a try because I think I don't know, you could really differ on whether you think it's more insulting to butcher someone's name versus more insulting to just not even try. I think this is Andrei Micic, but sorry if I mispronounced that. Going with a non-standard Hunters of Huanchi list, usually you will see a ton of Huanchi's claws. Here there is only one, which is kind of wild. So they've gone with just being able to flood the board. This is a few people now, 2 players out of the first 3 who are really flooding the board. These bodies are really fast, and so they are going to be able to grab treasures. There's going to be a real plan in place for something like Dragon's Hoard, where there are these 6 treasures, and the hunters are going to be able to run to forward treasures that are more under the opponent's control, take them, and then still get back, and then hopefully have so many bodies that when the opponent kills their first treasure carrier, one of their guys is going to be able to run up, take the treasure, and then hightail it out of there. So, there's a real plan in place. If this weren't a treasure mission or such a treasure heavy pack, I would kind of say that I don't like this warband. But given this pack, I'm interested to see how it goes. It should be interesting. Also, I love someone committing to having multiple Terra Wing bombs in Hunters of Huanchi. I really wish that build were more, just attractive enough to get more people to play it. And this person's gone for it, which I think is really cool. Now we've got red. on a one pack or one Rat Ogre Packmaster combo and one ranged Storm Fiend, and they've actually gone for the Might Blessing. Let's take a look at what the Rattling Cannon can do with a Might Blessing. So we are looking at 4, 5, 2, 4 is what they're going to be shooting. That definitely can kill a lot of stuff, especially, the Storm Fiends, the ranged Storm Fiends are so funny because if you rush them down, you still have to then deal with 3, 4, 4, 8, which is really annoying. So I think that's really interesting. I just love how we're seeing completely different theories of what's going to be good in this pack. The thing that I do like about Skaven is, yes, this player only has 2 things that can be resurrected, but I think that that's generally enough. And the Rat Ogre has both the speed to chase down these treasures and these treasure carriers, and it has the hitting power to do things in something like Killing Fields. So Killing Fields is something where you know you need to be fast to spread out on the board really quickly, but then it's all about just winning a fight once you get there. And so a Rat Ogre can absolutely do that. In fact, the ability to sort of run 10 inches and then attack something on a double is going to be incredibly helpful in that mission specifically. So, Skaven lists like this are always a scary threat in any tournament they go to, and I don't think that that will be any different here. Now, Andre Raven is also playing Skaven. Less standard build, but 2 Storm Fiends, one with the Rattling Cannon, one with the Doomflayer Gauntlets with Might. I actually really love that combo. For 290 points, it's probably the scariest fighter that you can really get in Chaos. If you look at the 2 melee Storm Fiends, the 2 good melee Storm Fiends, Shock Gauntlets. The Grinder Fists and the Doomflayer Gauntlets, one is 5 attacks, 4 strength, one is 4 attacks, 5 strength. Getting the +1 attack on the Grinder Fists costs 300 points, and you get the exact same profile for 290 points if you bless the strength on the Doomflayer Gauntlets, and 5548 is absolutely ridiculous. So I do think that the Doomflayer Gauntlet guy is one of the scarier threats here in this tournament, and I think that having the scariest guy on the board can win you a lot of these games. Things like, River of Gold, for example, is something where there's going to be major fights at each of these points, and then there's going to be just like a little sub game of who can go get this, who can afford the extra bodies to go get this treasure. And man, that Storm Fiend is going to win that central fight, which is going to be really interesting. And it's in the dagger, so it's really close to there. And you have the Rattling Cannon coming on in the shield, so being able to have one little guy come up while you are also shooting is going to be really good. So again, Skaven, always a threat. I think this is a really interesting setup for the faction, and I think it's cool to see someone going for something other than just Rat Ogres. Now we have another Soulblight list. This is a more fighty Soulblight list. So you're seeing a Vargeist, you're seeing a Vampire Lord, you're seeing a Hell Knight here to be able to run around. This person has made a few more concessions to the fact that there are so many treasures running around in this tournament. And so I think that's going to be interesting. The Vampire Lord is an interesting choice with Might. I think it does suffer from wanting more strength, but that 2/6 profile is so funny with a Might Blessing where most of your damage is coming from the crits, but you do just not love having only 4 strength. So I think that's interesting. I am looking forward to finding out how that ends up going for them. Otherwise, the plan here again is going to be feed them these skeletons, and then hopefully you win the fights when they waste their time killing the same skeleton 3 times. Zontier is going to be playing Slaves to Darkness. We have a very Chaos Warrior focused build. 4 Chaos Warriors, a spawn. The True Blood is really cool in a treasure focused event where it can get that guaranteed net to, you know, treasure carriers are already easy to stop in their tracks because once you engage them, they can't disengage anymore. But what this can do is net whoever was going to chase down your treasure carrier really nicely. And there are a lot of big melee fighters in this tournament that could be vulnerable to a True Blood. So I think that's really interesting. Uh, Otherwise, just trying to be really tanky and surviving. I am a little bit worried for Zentir because some of these, it's going to be really important to chase down a treasure carrier and then slap it, and that might be hard with this warband, but hopefully the chaos spawn is able to get there. I think that's maybe the one real offensive piece, and so I think there's going to be a lot of hopes and dreams pinned on that chaos spawn. Now we have Ola Livandowska, I think. Again, apologies if I mess up the names. This is very aggressive. So this is an Untamed Beast list. We've got the Heart Eater with +1 damage, or sorry, +1 crit for savagery. We've also got the Varengard with an additional attack. I do like the +1 attack bonus the best. I know a lot of people have mathed out that brutality is more damage when you are using the double, but I really like being in a situation with my Varengard where I actually don't have to use the double if I don't want to. If I have, need for a double elsewhere, then all of a sudden the Varengard can, can do something else. So I think that's going to be really important also given the context that Ola has chosen to do a First Fang, which has the pull double. So the idea is you pull things into Vexmore so that Vexmore can, actually get the full damage in there, which I really like. And it also makes me like the attack bonus because this is a very dice-hungry warband. Vexmore really needs that double. The First Fang really needs to be using its ability. And then, of course, the Varengard is, a professional ability hog. And so being able to have that +1 attack is really nice so that you don't necessarily have to use your dice on the Varengard if you don't want to. I really like this list, and I think it's got the speed, it's got the hitting power. It doesn't have a lot of body, so there are a few situations where it could get kind of punished a little bit. I think something like Witch Hunter's Nightmare could be really tough when you only have these bodies and you have no resurrections, and it's like you kind of want your plains runners like waiting to allow your big things to have a better attack, but then if you wait with a plains runner, basically your opponent gets double possessed value potentially, which is not what you want. So I also think like Strike the Heart could be tough for them, but I'm really interested to see how this does because I think this is a really cool warband and an incredibly aggressive take on Untamed Beasts, which I like. Also, Vexmore plus a pull is always cool. All right, Peter Mistek or Miskin. We've got a Star Master. We've got 2 Kroxigor War Spawns with, with extra defense, and then we've got a bunch of skinks running around. So that's pretty cool. This is really asking the Kroxigors to get a lot of value for you, but War Spawned are really scary. And with Fortitude, they're going to be really hard to kill, and they're going to have enough hitting power on their own. I think the idea here is he's going to want to grab a lot of treasures with the War Spawns, and the hope being that your opponent just cannot kill them, which I think is a really cool thing. And then, like, ideally, you grab treasure with your War Spawns, and then your opponent can't kill them, and then your Slann just kind of shoots down their treasure carriers and puts a lot of pressure on them. Your Slann is never going to shoot a treasure carrier and then go get the treasure, but if you shoot down a treasure carrier, you put a lot of pressure on your opponent to divert resources to going and picking back up that treasure. And a lot of these treasure missions are things like Harvest Moon, things like Jack of all trades, where you really want your treasure carrier to survive because you don't want to have to leave objectives to go pick up the treasure. Both of these missions are like all about that, and so that could be a way for Pyotr to make up for only having 7 bodies on some of those missions that otherwise might be really tough against something like this first warband we saw, like Greg's warband, where there's 12 and a damage dealer on some of those objective plus treasure missions. Now we're into Tadus on Dispossessed. A lot of bodies for a Dispossessed list here. You don't usually see 10 bodies, so that does mean that Grudge Bearers is going to be a little bit less scary than usual, where the best thing you've got for it is the Gyrocopter or your Ironbeard or your Warden King to get the free attacks in. But it is going to make pass on the body impossible to beat. So basically, you've got your Gyrocopter to run around playing the treasure game, and then the idea is basically you become unbeatable on the objectives and hope that that's good enough, right? Where you are sort of playing in one space and dominating in another space. And I think you might want to hope that you never see something like Bloody Trophies, or you never see something like Dragon's Horde. But again, in a pack like this, where if some things come up, they could be really scary for you, but if other things come up, the tournament could really go your way. I think it's really interesting. So something like Strike the Heart, I would not want to see this Dispossessed list in Strike the Heart. So I think that's cool. I think it's a interesting, like, calculated risk to take for a tournament like this. Kil'jaeden is playing a list out after my own heart. I love playing Scions of the Flame. They're one of my favorite casual warbands. This person is really doing it the way I like to do it, with a bunch of initiates with Morningstar and just like some holding pieces, right? The Lord of Plagues with Swiftness is really funny because, like, you're really making the choice not to play Vexmore if you're playing a Lord of Plagues with Swiftness, because you could get something else for, what is that, 195? So you could have a Blessed Vexmore and 15 points to put somewhere else. But Kil'jaeden has decided, screw that. They are going, I guess, Nurgle themed with their Scions. Mine are more Tzeentch themed, but maybe that's why he chose the Lord of Plagues. But either way, this is a really cool list. I love this list. I don't think you're going to win the tournament with this list, but you will win some games because, just if you can keep people off of your initiates, then you can get that melee damage in and have it from a safe place, which is really great. So if you can kind of engage with your Lord of Plagues, your FOMO Crusher, you can do pretty well. Things like Killing Fields might be kind of solid for this type of list, something like that. You don't have anything fast, so some of these treasure missions are going to be hard, but you're not the slowest group in the world either. Like, the FOMO Crusher is 5-inch move. The Lord of Plagues gets the 4-inch move here, and is really hard to kill. It doesn't do a lot of damage, but it's really hard to kill. So pretty interesting list. I've played things like it quite a bit, and I'm curious to see how it goes in this pack. All right, so Arthur Villanova, I think, I'm not sure, but we are seeing Thunderstrike with a Lord Imperatant. That is kind of the bigger Calthea. Luxa Storm Rider, she is, I believe, the Archer in Thunderstrike. And then we have 2 Liberators, 2 Annihilators. This is interesting. I think this person is really banking a lot on getting a lot of value from the triple from the Lord Imperatant and being able to hopefully, shoot treasure carriers off the board with Luxa. Hold on, maybe I'm wrong about Luxa because they blessed Luxa's melee weapon. So maybe I'm wrong about Luxa being the Archer. No, Luxa is the Archer. So 3-4-1-5 is what they did for the blessing. That's interesting. I wonder what their reasoning was for that. But yeah, so this is all about. It's a little bit like that Calthea plus Slan list from another player we saw earlier, but hoping to give bonus actions to Luxa and hopefully catch some Annihilators in the bubble there. I don't know that I would take such an Annihilator heavy list into a treasure heavy pack, but I hope it works out. I really love this style of play, accelerating Annihilators. I've had a ton of fun with that over the years, so I hope it works out for them. All right, now we've got Hubert on another Hunters of Huanchi list. This one also is not your traditional Hunters of Huanchi list. They do have 9 fighters. They are very shooty with Quiet Pock, Haskell Hexbane, and a single Huanchi's Claw, but they're not the kind of sort of fast gun line that you normally see for Hunters of Huanchi, which is really interesting. They've also committed to a Terra Wing Bomb section. Again, these Huanchi lists are going to be okay in terms of running down these treasures, but I am worried about the ensuing fights because almost every treasure mission, unless you're really cheesing it with teleports, it's really hard to grab a treasure and then never have to fight over the treasure. So yeah, I'm interested to see how that goes. Now we have Marcin Zen playing a very aggressive corn list. Drom, the Gore Hulk, Magor, Skullgrinder Herax, Gartok, and Zarkus, the Blood-Sighted. I don't know Gartok and Zarkus very well, so I am going to look them up. Apparently, I also don't know how to spell Gartok. Oh my god, there's an H in there. Terrible. There we go. Gartok Flayskull. Okay, so Gartok is sort of a slightly more reasonably costed Blood Warrior. Actually, this is kind of where Blood Warriors should be costed. I kind of like that. But either way, it's a very mid-range warband. There's nothing that's going to be the scariest thing on the board. Although we did see a lot of Swarm warbands that don't have a really scary melee threat. So the Gore Hulk in a lot of these matchups will actually be the scariest thing on the board. But generally very mid-range, very hoping to do multiple things at once. I love the attitude. I am skeptical of this really fitting with the missions that we're seeing, but man, if Marcin does well, that'll be cool because then he'll be able to say, I told you so. I don't know the plan for pronouncing this, so one of the few times I won't try. But this person just going pure Gorger Maul pack. That is incredibly bold in a tournament that is so heavy on treasures. I think that's so cool. I would not want to be running this in this tournament, but I think that is awesome that they went for it. Gorger Maw Pack is really fun. Having a bunch of undercosted fighters who can all charge is really awesome. And he also managed to fit 2 clawbacks, which does mean he does have 2 treasure carriers. So some of these you only need 2 treasure carriers, so it might work out pretty well. Who knows? So I'm curious how this ends up going. All right, we have Casper on another Skaven list. This is still a double Packmaster, double Rat Ogre. We've got 3 Resurrectables. We've got Skabic. There are a lot of objectives scattered around here, and even a lot of these will say objective even when the mission is about other things. Like, for example, I think River of Gold has these objectives that I guess they do get removed from the battlefield, but if someone walks up to them and then doesn't have the movement to loot, Skabic can kind of pre-damage them, which is kind of cool. This is the type of Skaven list that is a huge threat in every single tournament that you bring it to. I think Creepkin Whisper is a really cool piece in a lot of missions like this, where it's both really fast and has the shooting attack. I think Rat Ogres being able to run up and get these treasures and then win their fights. Winning fights is going to be a really big deal. This pack is really interesting because you have to be able to spread out and you have to be able to win fights. And so those things are usually at odds with each other in Warcry, which is kind of cool. So I think that this list is very well positioned to be able to attack a lot of these missions, and I think Casper is going to do really well. I don't know how experienced Casper is, but in a lot of players' hands, I would definitely expect this to be one of the lists to beat at the tournament, and so hopefully Casper is able to make that happen. All right, Max is playing Sylvaneth. This is sort of the classic look of Sylvaneth with different kinds of Revenants, Kurnoth Hunters. This is the type of Sylvaneth where, we see this type of list happen a lot throughout the history of Warcry, where you're really just, you need to get the most out of your abilities because all of your fighters are just a little bit overcosted for whether or not they'll win their fights. However, these teleports, there are certain missions where these teleports can really ruin your opponent. So, for example, let's say you lose initiative on Jack of all trades. They take one of their safe safe treasures, and then they head on towards the objective. You can just teleport to their other, like let's say you're blue, right? Let's say their hammer goes first, takes this treasure, walks towards this objective. You can now teleport from one of these and actually take their objective and then run towards a safer objective with it. So, for example, you could say, okay, they've moved their hammer here. I'm going to teleport someone from my hammer straight to here and then walk up here. And now my shield can come in to support after taking this treasure. And, I'll end up with 3 treasures to my opponent's 1 right off the bat. So you can do a lot of, things like that with the tree revenants, which can be really annoying for your opponent and will be extra good on this sort of tournament pack. But the question is, how many of those missions are you going to get, and are you going to suffer in some of the more traditional ones where you can get in trouble, right? So, some of the more like Strike the Heart, although you can do some cool things in Strike the Heart with teleporting as well. But there's a lot of pressure on you to have good initiative rolls to make sure that your cool abilities can make up for your fighters being generally underwhelming, kind of point for point. But yeah, so these very techie Sylvaneth lists are fun to play, and I hope Max has a lot of fun. But I'm interested to see if they're able to pilot it that way. Yaroslav Gopek is also playing Gorger Mawpack, only 1 clawback. Man, I think it's so badass playing all Gorger Mawpack in a mostly treasures tournament. But man, I hope they have a good time. I hope they're able to catch some treasure carriers and just like table your opponent so that you don't have to carry any treasures, and then just spend a double at the end of the game when the scoring happens. Christoph Schmidt playing a very cool Cruel Boys list. We've seen people experiment with stuff like this before, but this is really sweet with Hrothgorn being able to, gun down any kind of treasure carrier, hopefully get so many kills that he even like brute force wins his way onto objectives, things like that. Quiv getting him the additional attack, which is important. The Gut Rippa, being able to have 8 bodies. In some matchups, it's funny, a lot of people have gone with 7 or 6 and gone really light on bodies in this tournament, and a lot of people have gone really full swarm. We've seen kind of the whole range. With 8 bodies here, you're going to be able to make sure that you can bring out the very important why am I blanking? The important reaction to get the free attack for Hrothgorn. But against these swarms, you're not going to worry that much about it, and you're just going to gun down stuff, and you're probably going to one-shot stuff with Hrothgorn. So I think this is interesting for having a plan versus both. And then, of course, Morgok is able to cheese objectives. We don't have anything that's necessarily cheesing the treasure condition here, but you're not too slow, so you can still run up. And then, the hope is that Hrothgorn is just going to be able to shoot down opposing treasure carriers really nicely, so that hopefully you can like screw with the scoring. Like a lot of these will give you a treasure every round, or a treasure point every round for holding one. So hopefully you're just able to shoot down their treasure carriers, force them to do a lot of work running back to the treasure, and hopefully you're able to win that way. I do think that this player is going to get a lot of kills, just a ton of kills, especially like Morgok really fights for his points too. So yeah, I think this should be a really good list. Alex Wilkes doing the coolest stuff. The Wilder Fiend with a Might Blessing is a very cool piece to be using. For folks who don't know, Wilder Fiends have 1,000,000 attacks and 3/4 damage. So they're going 6/6 3/4. I think the idea there is to be able to like not have to worry about counter, because T5 35 wounds is a lot of health to have. And so if you can just avoid, never having to roll fours, is really nice. And also just plus strength anytime you're doing 3 damage on your hits is just going to be good. Then we've got the Dark Oath War Queen, the 155 point version, which makes her actually a pretty good fighter point for point at that points cost. And then she has a little ability that gets to do some cool cheesing with the Dark Oath Marauders, moving them around the board, which will be really important in these treasure missions. The Master Molder also being just a really fast ally is good. It does have the +1 attack aura. I'm not that excited about +1 attack here, if I'm being honest. Nothing in this list really uses it very well, in my opinion, but that's okay, because you just have a really fast ally who can get to places. And can the Master Molder whip the Wilder Fiend is my question now. The Wilder Fiend has the Beast Rune Mark, so I think, oh my god, are we doing it? Are we doing it? Are we partying with this Master Molder? Any friendly fighter with the Beast Rune Mark. Okay, I take it all back. I love the Master Molder. I am rooting for Alex to win the tournament. This has become, immediately, this is the coolest list in the world. So you're using your Master Molder to whip the Wilder Fiend to make it basically a giant rat ogre, which is really cool. And then, of course, the Dark Oath War Queen, if you don't know, it has an ability that gets very silly with Marauders. So this is sort of a really beautiful Johnny warband. Yeah, it's War Queen's Fury. Or no, it's not War Queen's Fury. Where is the actual, who cares? Yeah, she has an ability that works really well with all this Marauder spam going on. And then we have our Fell Rider to run around. This is just a concession to the sheer number of treasures that are on these missions. And this is a very cool set of combos. So I think it'll be really hard to win the tournament with this, because you do need to have your initiative rolls cooperate with you. But as far as just like doing the coolest stuff available, yeah, you can't beat this. This is my favorite list I've seen so far in the tournament. This is awesome. All right, Pyotr Malizik, Calthea. We've got some of the big Stormcasts. So Sarpon the Cyclone and Goltan the Relentless. I believe Goltan, I think, is one of the gacha heroes in the So Goltan is basically an Annihilator Prime, just very hitty, has kind of some extra abilities that justify being 5 points more. And then Sarpon, I think Sarpon is the what is it, the Domatan Storm Coven fighter. Yeah, so going to be able to shoot some stuff, going to have some useful abilities. Also, 28 wounds is a lot of wounds to chew through. Sarpon also a little bit more respectable in melee than most of the Knight Arcanums that are out there. So kind of some classic stuff here with Stormcast. We're trying to Calthea to zoom up our other things. I don't love, anytime I'm playing a Gryph-hound in a Stormcast list, I don't love it, especially with Calthea. I don't love that, but some very cool pieces, and Sarpon can definitely win some fights. And if Calthea is able to uh, accelerate him into the treasure fights, right? Like if their treasure carrier takes the treasure and then Sarpon's able to catch up because of Calthea, then you're going to be in a situation to really win your fights, which is cool. All right, uh, Matush, man, I wish I could pronounce this. I'm so sorry. I'm very scared by it. Um, Man, I next year when Warcry happens, I am going to like take a little class on pronouncing Polish names, and then I'll come back a lot better. All right, so we have a very mid-range Rotmeyer Creed list. Is this one box? No, this is not one box. There are two bloated ones, um, but yeah, so we've just got some movement as far as not being the slowest in the world, very sort of normal foot fighters over and over. The Raker Claws guys are pretty good at fighting for their points. The Witherlord can, with that triple, can blow stuff up. I do think, at least personally, I'd be really scared to run something like this in a tournament like this with some of the folks we've seen, but it's very cool. I love Rotmeyer Creed. I've got 2 boxes of them. And yeah, going pure, I don't remember Rotmeyer Creed's battle trait, but I hope the battle trait is good because it would be nice to see this person have a good time. All right, Christoph Hain is playing Wildercore Hunters, playing 5 Trailblazers. You know what it is. We've gone to Arby's. We've brought an Annihilator Prime. This is one of the sort of boogeyman lists in the game right now, very much so. This list is probably unbeatable in Bloody Trophies. Is this the one? Yeah, because Bloody Trophies, the way it's worded, gives you the treasure even if you killed them at range and not in melee. So that's going to be really terrifying if your opponent gets to hold you at arm's length and still take treasures off of you. You're going to have to rush up to them, and it's going to be really hard. So that's going to be really interesting. I would not want to have to deal with all these crossbows and an Arbalester and an Annihilator Prime in any of these missions, so that is really scary. Christoph is definitely one of the main threats to win the tournament for sure. All right, Bartosz Wizanski. All right, so Bartosz has gone for naming all of their fighters, which is awesome. Love to see that. And then otherwise, they're going for a fairly straightforward, well, it's not really straightforward anymore. People tend not to run lists like this all that often anymore, even though I think that they are still really good, like just as good as ever. Basically, we've got a Varangard, we've got a Vexmore. We've seen one other Varangard Vexmore list as well, the Untamed Beast one. And then this person is just going with Singri Brand. Singri, somewhat of a popular choice in Dark Oath. I've never liked Singri, but for people who don't know, Singri basically has a triple where basically she gets to shoot stuff, and then if she pulls off her triple, she becomes like a really dominant force. So there are certain games where she can kind of look like she's won you the game single-handedly, but then other times, it can, like, if you fail to pull it off, she just doesn't recoup her points at 220 points. So a really interesting piece that requires you to put a lot of thought into maximizing her in every single game. This is a very dice-hungry list, but that's okay because it's got a lot of threats and a lot of abilities to move around. This is a very fast list as well. Like, Vexmore is the only... there's a lot of move 4, but the fact that there's 2 horses is, very good on these treasure missions. That might have been why they went for Singri plus a Varangard. Different Varangard than the one you usually see, but I actually think that the 290-point Varangard is underloved. People tend to go for the 285 one, but the the 291 is perfectly fine. Um, yeah, this is really interesting with Singri. I think you got to hope that there isn't a lot of anti-cav terrain because once you have two horses, you're really committing to horse life. But as long as they don't get stuck on terrain, they should be really good. And Vexmore and Varangard together are always going to be reasonable. There's also Vexmore hates fighting dwarves, and we haven't seen a lot of. Oh, there are going to be a lot of dwarves later, though. I take that back. Although, again, the Varangard is so great because the Varangard is so good at killing dwarves when Vexmore is so bad at it. All right, that was Bartos. Now, Pavel Rembertova, probably. We're looking at Khorne with a bunch of Blood Reavers, 2 Korgoraths, +1 toughness, I believe, or is it? I can't remember which one. If resilience is toughness, I think, or if it's plus wounds. I think it's toughness. So these are +1 toughness Korgoraths with a Slaughter Priest to sort of drag people around. The Slaughter Priest, I've sort of become a meme for not liking Slaughter Priests. I do really like it in this situation with all these treasures around because, there's going to be a lot of people who are like running around, teleporting with their treasures, doing really annoying stuff with their treasures, and being able to, yeah, nope, that's not the one. All right. Being able to pick someone up 8-inch range on this is really great. So you can double move and then force them to actually like engage with you. So now their treasure carrier that you were never going to be able to catch ever is actually in combat and now can't disengage. So the Slaughter Priest, normally I'm not a big fan, but here I think it's going to be incredible in these missions. And then the 2 Korgoraths are going to be able to win some fights. A lot of people have declined to have any real scary melee fighters in their warbands. So the fact that you have a lot of move 5 to go grab these treasures, 2 Korgoraths to, fight over the various objectives and stuff. You have the actually, I was going to say you have the Khorne battle trait, but I've actually been really disappointed with the Khorne battle trait. I just feel like it should be better. And then you've got a lot of play in a lot of the things this tournament is asking you to do here, which I think is really cool. So I hope Pavel does really well because I really like this list. And I wish I had a Korgorath because I have everything else in Khorne and I really like playing Khorne, but I don't have the Korgorath to do like some of the silly, the silly extra stuff that you really need to be doing in Khorne. All right, now we're seeing Pavel Janicki with the first of a few different KO lists we're going to see. This is a list after my own heart. This is, different than how I usually play KO in that there's no Thunderer, but Thunderers are kind of just cute. So instead they've gone with a whole bunch of Arcos. What have we got? 8 Arcos here. And then the thing that makes it a list after my own heart is KO with Stormcast allies is how I like to do KO. The Annihilator Prime and the Prosecutor Prime together. I think this is cool because there's some things here like, for example, River of Gold, like Dragon's Horde, where the teleport on the Prosecutor Prime could potentially just win the game on the spot. But there are also lists or sort of missions here where the Prosecutor Prime is kind of embarrassing. And so in every mission where the Prosecutor Prime is really embarrassing, the Annihilator Prime is going to be insane. So I kind of like the give and take there. I like doing +1 move on the Engine Master here because there are some dwarf hate crimes here on these missions. Especially like Jack of all trades is really difficult to get to where you want to go with your dwarves if you also want to get the treasures. So having that extra movement, I think, is going to be really important, especially because the dagger is going to show up late in that mission. So you're really going to need to leverage the Prosecutor Prime in that first mission there. Yeah, I really like having a ton of Arcos. I think Arcos are really fun and really difficult to deal with in certain types of missions. the issue being that you can just lose to the mission itself, or you can just lose to, for example, Wildercore just being a better version of your list. But yeah, this list is sweet. I love it. Yeah, hopefully they do really well. Let's go into Arthur R. Another Hunters of Huanchi. This one, a little bit more traditional. We've got our Slan Star Master. We've got multiple Huanchi's Claws. This is the first time, seeing a more traditional Hunters of Huanchi list, which I think will do pretty well. I think some of these missions are really, really good for them. This is actually double Star Master. Oh, interesting. Wow. I've played against double Star Master, and it is wild. It is a real trip. Star Masters, sometimes I feel like a Star Master just on its own wins you the game, and sometimes it on its own loses you the game. Cool thing about that is when you have two of them, if one of them feels like it is single-handedly losing you the game, there's a decent chance that the other one is rolling a lot better and maybe single-handedly makes up for it. So playing against two Star Masters can be really, really difficult. I do think it'll be really good in these treasure missions where, your opponent's just not going to be able to hold a treasure because you're going to be able to focus fire whatever you want to focus fire with two different Star Masters. They're also going to be really good at gunning down a lot of the chaff that's here. I would not be surprised if Arthur wins the tournament, but there are a lot of very, very spiky lists here that are like that, as far as, known terrifying things. We've had double Star Master win TTS League before. I think this is going to be really hard to play against. But there are some things that can do it. In fact, we're going to see very soon a list that can do it. And then, like against Skaven, this will be really interesting too because, the Star Masters can shoot down, put damage on the Rat Ogres really quickly, but also a Rat Ogre going first in round 2 can maybe take out a Star Master before it can ruin your day. So yeah, going to be some really interesting matchups at the top tables, but I would not be surprised if Arthur wins the tournament. All right, J. Trokim. This is a very cool little KO list. We've got multiple Sky Pikes, which I think are sweet. I love Sky Pikes. I only have one Sky Pike, but something I want to do one day is do a Calthea plus a bunch of Sky Pikes type of list, but that's not what he's doing here because he's made some real concessions to the very treasury flavor of the event by having multiple balloons, 4 regular Arcos. I think this is a good list. I do think I would have a tough time co-signing double balloon, but I do think it has the tools for the missions, so I think that this could be pretty dangerous. I think I'd rather be playing some of the other, I'm like still rattled by that double Star Master list. I would not want to be playing this into double Star Master, I'll tell you what. These dwarves just die to frogs just so quickly, it's wild. But there's going to be situations where everything goes according to plan, where like your balloons go grab the treasures, your dwarves trundle over to the objective, and then you're just kind of like shooting them and then playing in every type of the scoring, right? Like sometimes KO while you're playing it can feel like kind of hard mode because you're not doing anything busted, but then on your opponent's side, your opponent's like, man, like they are playing in every level of the game, and that is really hard to play against. So yeah, could do some really interesting things with this list. All right, Victor. It's okay, this is not a bunch of Gutlords like I thought it would be. This is an interesting, we've got 2 Yetis, we've got a Trogoth, we've got 2 Noblars, and a Crusher. This is not the kind of ogre list you usually see, but I am really loving seeing some people go with super elite and then other people go super swarm. I really want to find out how some of those matchups end up playing out in these games. The Yeti is going to be fast enough to really play in the treasure missions here. there is going to be a lot of pressure on this Crusher. Not all of these missions are treasure missions, right? So something like Strike the Heart, um, even something like Harvest Moon, where the treasures show up late, uh, you know, Witch Hunter's Nightmare, there's just going to be a lot of pressure on this Crusher to get a ton of kills early. So as long as Victor can make that happen, I think they'll have a chance in all of their games. But yeah, make sure that your Crusher rolls well and gets in there early, because you're going to need to have Might Makes Right happening all the time. Grotch is the best player in the world. For anyone watching this who doesn't know much about the Warcry meta, Grotch is the best player in the world. He is playing listed as a bit of a flex. If I'm being honest, I don't expect Grotch to win this tournament. Basically, he's gone with a list that is very good at cheesing movement with the Ephilim teleports that are out here. So things like River of Gold. If you play him on River of Gold, you will lose right away because he'll just be able to do like the annoying teleport stuff and just get the treasures out of your reach. But there's a lot of pressure on him to get the maximum value off of the pink horror splits here. Basically, pink horrors are pretty cool if your opponent has to put multiple attacks into them and then they split. So for example, they only have 12 health, but if you hit one, don't kill it, and then the next time you hit it, it splits, it feels like you've just lost infinite value. But if you one shot kill it and then it splits, that's not as heartbreaking. And the thing that is incredibly heartbreaking if you are the pink horror player is if you just like used your pink horror and then they kill it after you're activated out. So it is a list that requires a lot of planning. It's a list that I would think would work better on TTS, where you have more time to plan than it would work in person. But we'll see. I don't know what the round timers will look like, and it's possible that Grok is, or maybe it's Grok, I don't know, but it's possible that he's able to kind of have the plan for each mission beforehand so that he's able to get things done quickly. The one thing I will say, this Flamer is doing what a lot of other folks have chosen to try out in this tournament, which is just being able to shoot treasure carriers from afar. I think is going to be a nice thing to have here. Because of missions like Killing Fields, I actually do kind of like having one artillery piece better than I like having a whole gun line. So things like where was I looking at, the Wilder Core list? I think it's this one that has that has an Arbalester. Normally I would say go as many crossbows as you can, but for things like Killing Fields, for things like all these treasures, I actually really like having the one artillery piece where you can just get a lot of damage at once, hopefully like as your first activation, and that can be really powerful. And so Grotch has done that here, which I think is really good. Oh, I actually think, hold on, so there's multiple Wilder Core players who are on the same list, because Piotr is on the same list as, man, 44 players is so many players. Either way, yeah, so interesting flex by him. I think he's gonna do really well because he's the best player in the room, but I'd be really impressed if he's able to go 4-0 with this list. All right, Matthews is playing double Rat Ogre, double Packmaster. Love to see a good Creepkin Whisper. Grey Seer, you don't see a lot of, but I think is really cool. And with the Storm Vermin, the Grey Seer getting Might, I'm assuming that's for the Wizard Blast, because then the Grey Seer also gets the ability to, on a double, improve its Wizard Blast. And so I think that's a cool little combo. And then with the Storm Vermin there to protect him is cool. I think Matthews has looked at the deployments and said that he wants a lot of shooting in his hammer, which is kind of neat. I know a lot of people in their list reviews will just like when they see a uh, you know, sort of proven archetype, they'll get bored and grumpy and they'll just move on. I think Skaven are really cool. I think a lot of the I did a whole video on it last winter about how a lot of the S tier lists in Warcry are really cool and are deserving. So I don't like skipping over just because this is a known archetype. I do like looking at some of the kind of subtle flavor within the archetype because I think this is really cool. I think this little change to do a Grey Seer and a Storm Vermin instead of like Skabic in the same role. Like you could do Skabic and a Clan Rat here for the exact same number of points, but this is a really cool little bit of like extra flavor that lets you attack in a different way than Skabic would let you attack, which I think is really cool. Being able to both protect the Grey Seer and being able to have a scarier Wizard Blast is a really neat little bit of Skaven innovation, so I love that. So yeah, I'm rooting for you, Matthews. I think this is one of my favorite lists in the event, even just because it's like finding your own twist on a established archetype that is going to change it in a very meaningful way. All right, so Pyotr Lewandowski, we've seen an almost not quite identical because the other person was running 5 Trailblazers. Pyotr's running 6. An Arcanaut Admiral is kind of cool. So he's hoping to, because there's so many treasures, he's hoping to get one of the treasures onto his Admiral and then start fight for profiting near the Arbalester. Or maybe just like moving the Admiral onto an object. There's a few places on this map. Actually, this is cool. Piotr, you've maybe made. I hate Wildercore, but you're competing for favorite list of the tournament because what he has figured out is that there's a bunch of things like River of Gold or Strike the Heart, again, Shield, River of Gold, Shield. He's got it in his shield. Yep. Shield for Jack of all trades. Yeah, there's a bunch of places where you can get the tip of your base of the Admiral onto the objective, and then you can still have the Arbalester in the in the aura, right? So the Arbalester doesn't have to move. You double move your Admiral and then pop your triple, and then your Arby is still in the fight for profit aura of the Admiral, and so now you're getting bonus attacks onto your +1 strength Arbalester. So this is very cool. This is the kind of, again, just like I said with Matus, this is the kind of like very subtle shift to an established archetype that I think is so cool, and I think is like the most fun thing to celebrate about tournament lists is finding these little fun twists, little fun innovations to things that we already know are powerful, and seeing if you can bring them over to the top and if you can take them from very powerful to just like busted, and like busted in an interesting way with like interesting ability and geometry interactions. So I think that's really cool, and I hope that Pyotr wins everything. There's a bunch of people here where I hope they win everything, but you know. All right, so Ziadu Zilasu with a very aggressive, like just like all gas, no brakes Ogroid list. So it's 4 Ogroids. We got the Myrmidon, we got the Thaumaturge, we got 1 Great Axe Therodon, and 1 Thoricon. This is a beautiful themed list. Yeah, JJ Austrian, eat your heart out. This is a list that a lot of people have been wanting to run for a long time, and so I'm glad that this person is taking it. All right, Matt with Dark Oath. We've got Singri, we've got Vexmore, we've got a War Queen. This is a very straightforward, a very difficult to fight against list. A lot of people are bringing 10 wound fighters who are going to struggle to stay alive against the War Queen and the Vexmore. So that's pretty cool. I think, you know, Vexmore with a little bit of speed on your team. You know, Singri is bringing the speed. Fellrider is bringing the speed. You can absolutely win some games in this tournament pack with a, with something like that. 50 Shades of Slay is a great name for a girl power list that has a Vexmore in it. I actually kind of love that. I hope like the Fell Rider and the Marauder sculpts are all female as well, and then Vexmore can be the, I can't remember the name of the love interest in 50 Shades of Grey, but yeah, that's very cool. This is a very cool name for a themed warband, or like a warband that wouldn't necessarily have a theme until all of a sudden you give it that name, and then it's like, oh, I see what's happening here. So that's really cool. I love that, Matt. I'm rooting for you. All right. Vernest is playing Ruination Chamber. We got a couple Griff Crows to counter. Actually, I kind of love Ruination Chamber in this tournament specifically. We've got one Prosecutor Prime, a bunch of Reclusians. I can't co-sign the second Prosecutor, but otherwise I love this list because there's a lot of players in the room who are hoping to cheese wins with like treasure-focused abilities. And Vernest is going to have a very good chance to counter those because a lot of those go off on a triple where the opponent doesn't get the choice for like basically what their dice are. They're kind of at the mercy of the doubles they've rolled. They can't just like spend a wild dice and have a 6 that then can't really be countered by the Ruination Chamber player, right? So, as soon as he spends a double for one of these Reclusians to move them around the board, he's going to be able to do it. The Griff Crows, they don't care. They'll just be counter batteries. So there's a very good chance that he's going to be able to cheese the treasures. His opponent is not going to be able to cheese the treasures because he's just going to counter them. And having a low fighter count doesn't matter for that because if you're going to do these like treasure cheese abilities, you really need to do it like first or second activation of whatever round you're in, right? And so that's when he's going to be able to use his counter spells really effectively. So he's going to be able to basically cheese them, stop them from cheesing him, and then he's just going to be able to fight hard with these Reclusians, and the Reclusians really, they really punch for what they cost. Once they're in combat, they're really good at fighting. So I really like this list. I think that Vernus is going to do really well with this. I think this is cool. Yeah. All right. Baz is running the Techie Sylvaneth. So something that I like about Baz's take on Techie Sylvaneth is, again, Sylvaneth incredibly dice hungry, a lot of pressure on the pilot to overcome the sort of general the general mediocrity of Kurnoth hunters don't necessarily fight as well as you want them to, right? Revenants don't necessarily fight as well as you want them to, and so you need all those dice to do really well. Well, enter the Destiny. I believe, unless I have completely forgotten, I believe that the Destiny, there's too many things that mention Destiny. I believe that the Destiny blessing is the +1 wild dice blessing for 40 points, which is amazing because that allows you, yeah, totally, 1 extra wild dice. I love that. That's incredible, Baz. This is so cool. So basically, Baz is taking, Techie Sylvaneth, where your initiative rolls just like you live and die by your initiative roll, and they've just said, listen, I'm going to take the pressure off. I'm going to boost my initiative rolls with an extra wild dice right at the beginning of the game so that at least once per game, when I get that terrible initiative roll, I'm going to be able to fix it and make sure that I have all the abilities that I need at my disposal. And I really hope that that helps kind of save Techie Sylvaneth, because generally, we see a lot of people run these warbands and they always do okay because, you've got awesome abilities. You've got people who do every thing that there is to do on the battlefield, even if they don't do it well. But you also will usually lose a game where you just get like outfought in an important team fight, or like you get a bad initiative roll and you aren't able to use all your abilities when you want to. And that's not going to happen to Baz, which I think is a really cool piece of innovation. So I'm loving how much innovation we're seeing in this tournament, and I think that's really cool. Oh man, we're getting close to the end. Rufus is here with Is it the one box? Oh, no, it's not. So a joke I have is that every tournament has to have one person on one box Vulcan Flameseekers. Um, Rufus did not go one box, but this is still pretty sweet. Cyrenian Sephoneer. For those who don't know, there's a very cool little combo with Whippy Dwarf, which is Drothmaster, where Whippy Dwarf can whip Sephoneer and get way more good stuff than you would get out of whipping just like one of the little Vulcan dogs. Sephoneer is like an actual fighter for basically the same price as those dogs, and when you whip Sephoneer, you just get a ton of good stuff. Cyrene is also insane for the points, getting that third dice. 165 for a wizard who probably should cost 175 is just a really nice deal to have. All right, so now we have Balint on Seraphon, Calthea plus a Salamander plus Croxigore. So looking to get the bonus attacks on the Salamander, multiple bonus attacks. So we've got the Skink Handler and the Calthea here. This Salamander might shoot 4 times in a round, maybe even 5 if you waited on the Skink Handler and somehow had a crazy, not Salamander, somehow had a really crazy initiative roll. But yeah, the 2, 4, 3, 6. But I think with +1 strength, yeah, 2, 5, 3, 6. So yeah, they're hoping to just machine gun everyone down with this Salamander, which I think is really cool. And hopefully they can catch the Croxigore in the in the Calthea bubble a couple times, which would be cool. Also, Skink Handler going pop the double on the Salamander, wait, pop the double again on the Salamander is going to be a lot easier when Calthea is also, like, you're still going to be able to get to where you're going because Calthea is giving you a free move action, so that's going to be cool. All right, Jan is playing classic Demons of Slaanesh. This is a very, very spiky list. This is Vexmore, Lasavir, Vastus. Vastus is really good in a lot of situations in the current meta. The folks who have shown up to this tournament actually have a lot of fairly Vastus-proof lists, which I think is kind of scary if you are Jan. But there's a lot of Vexmores out there too, and Vastus is so good against Vexmore. When I play Hedonites, I usually go 1 less Demonet and then trade in Lasavir. Or when I play Demons, I will usually trade in Lasavir for something that costs in the low 200s there. But I still think it's really cool doing it this way because 10 fighters is a lot. And I guess the idea is Demonettes are really fast, so having a lot of them in a bunch of treasure missions is going to be really good. Yeah, I would want a bigger fighty thing, but a reason why I kind of respect going against that one, it's much more thematic, having all three of them buffed with a Divine Blessing. And the chaos stuff in that like 220 range, which is what you'd end up with if you cut a Demonet here to buff Lasavir. The chaos stuff in that range is not very good. So yeah, why not just have a slightly better point for points thing? Chaos needs a lot of buffs in that like 200 to 220 sort of range of fighters. Basically every chaos fighter in that range sucks. Okay, so Lucas playing Bone Splitters. Yeah, we've got a lot of, the Boar Boys. So Lucas is going to be running around really fast using charge. Basically nothing can hide from him unless they're on terrain. And it should be interesting to see if he's able to win a lot of fights with those Boar Boys. He's always going to be able to be in fights, so this could be really annoying for some of the folks who are hoping to like cheese treasures with teleportation abilities. He doesn't really care about teleports, right? He's gonna move and charge and have like 17-inch threat range, which is wild, right? So you're not gonna escape him, but is he gonna be able to win the fights when he gets there is really interesting. All right, Michael is playing Dispossessed. This is a more traditional Dispossessed list. We've got our Errant Quester. Oh, okay, so he's really comboing hard on Knave Black Talon. That's pretty cool. I like that a lot. I think, Knave is a good combo piece to have if you are worried about treasures, because she does move 7. Brutality Blessing is great. I've played her a little bit with Brutality Blessing. It's fun. The Quester is going to push her up the board 7 inches. Then anyone who dies is going to let her get extra attacks in. She's going to do a bunch of damage. Yeah, this is a cool little combo list. I like this a lot. Dispossessed is cool. It gets to kind of, it can be so awful on certain missions playing against Dispossessed, but like the central kind of plan of combo accelerating one really scary thing is really fun. And Knave is hard to kill, so your opponent, if they want to net her, she can shoot still even if she's been netted, which is really great. If they want to try to just take her down quickly, that can be really hard with her because she's got toughness and health. So this is a cool little combo piece. Matu's Gorecki, oh my god, double Gut Lord, oh my god, and a regular Iron Gut. Wow, this is wild. And a Boggle Eye to net stuff, which is kind of nice in a treasure mission. Yeah, so Matuz is a real threat to win the tournament. Very good chance that they win the tournament here because double Gut Lord, especially one of them, is blessed. And I don't know if this is Flexi Blessings. People have noted it on their lists as if it's not. But yeah, one blessed Gut Lord, one unblessed Gut Lord. Basically, Matuz is just betting that these games are going to come down to who wins the fights, and Matuz is going to win every fight. So things like Killing Fields can be really hard against double Gut Lord. Things like River of Gold will be really hard against double Gut Lord. Things like Bloody Trophies will be really hard against double Gut Lord. So that's interesting. And so I think this is going to be a good test for a lot of people. Like, can I wait out, at least Matuz doesn't have a lot of activations. Can I wait them out and then put damage onto the Gut Lord before it hits me? That's going to be really hard because this Boggle Eye is going to allow Matuz to net something and then come in elsewhere. So like you can net the only thing that could actually deal damage to a Gut Lord and then go in and kill other stuff with the Gut Lord. It's going to be interesting. This is a really hard list to play against, but there are some people who I think have brought legitimate tools against it. Some of the gun lines, if you face him on a very objective heavy mission, like something like, like Jack of all trades, maybe you can burn down the 2 Noblars really quick with your shooting and then just kind of like run away while holding the objectives. That's going to kind of be your plan. But yeah, very scary list, and I hope you do really well with it, Matuz. I think the people got to know, right? the more Gut Lords win tournaments, the more likely they are to be nerfed if we ever get an FAQ. All right, so now we've got Horns of Hashut. We've got a few Shatterers. We got a Vexmore. We've got a Kagra to have. Wait, do we have Kagra's sister? We don't have Kagra's sister. Fascinating. We have Kagra without her sister. So we've got Kagra here, but we're not doing the teleports, which I think Kagra and her sister would be really good in this tournament, but she's just there as a fighter, as just a regular smack you around with her mace kind of deal. So that's kind of cool. We do have 2 flame hurlers, which is going to be really good against a couple of the warbands that are here. We have a few warbands here at this tournament that are really going to struggle against flame hurlers, so that's kind of cool. I wonder if that's going to be effective in the treasure missions or not. I'm interested to see. Yeah, so then we have our last one is Bastion Wargaming with Daughters of Cain. Fun one to end on. Sisters of Slaughter are sweet. They used to be 70 points instead of 75, and that was really cool. Yeah, we've got, and then this one used to be 75 instead of 80, which was too bad. The Bloodrack Medusa is the kind of fighter that can occasionally single-handedly win a game, especially in some of the types of missions we have here, like, River of Gold. Dragon's Horde is definitely, more than River of Gold. I think Dragon's Horde is definitely a mission that a Bloodrack Medusa can sometimes single-handedly win. Is she on round 1 in right? Oh no, she's not. Interesting. So I do think there's a real good chance that Bastion can get a win here. And I hope that they are able to, because that would be sweet. So that is every single list in this tournament, all 44 of them. I think I ended up taking like an hour and a half of your time. So if you enjoyed that, please leave a comment on any of the lists that you thought were cool. And yeah, comment, subscribe to the Patreon if you haven't and you're interested in discussing lists like this, because I get really into these. I like them a lot. So for everyone who is going to be at this tournament, may all your rolls be crits. Man, that would be chaos if everybody only rolled crits. That would be horrible. What a tournament that would be. Anyway, may all your rolls be crits.